My name is Day 9. Ah, it's time to learn to be a better gamer. It's the 430th daily. So that's great. Of course, I wanted to let most of you know right off the bat that I'm going to South by Southwest. I'm doing a panel there talking about online video. And all that good jazz. And of course, the reason I'm doing that is because I do the daily. It earned me street cred in that online video community. So that's cool. And I'm personally very excited about it because not only do I get to promote all the wonderful things that are esports, but also because I actually kind of feel like web TV is the future of all of entertainment. The fact that we can interact directly while I'm doing the show. For instance, I see you got it tonight saying, oh yeah, 4:30, woo, hey, what's up? I literally see you right now. How cool is that? You don't get to see that in the middle of an episode of Lost. You're never in the middle of an episode of Lost and you're like, wow, that is the weirdest plot point ever. That sucks. And the writers can go, well, in the commercial break, we'll fix it. What they actually decided to do was to fix it for Season 7. Get it? Lost people? Get it? Good. Great. Before we begin today's Daily of Choice, I wanted to, announce that I'm going out of town for South by Southwest, and then I'm going straight to Orlando for the Red Bull LAN, where we're going to have a whole bunch of top gamers all hop together in one place to train for upcoming tournaments. Yeah! Been having a lot of fun discussing stuff with the players about what they're practicing and stuff. So you can watch that here on twitch.tv/day9tv. There's also a URL globally for all the stuff, and you can check that out at teamliquid.net. There's a Red Bull LAN Orlando thread there. Cool. Now that I got that all out of the way, let's talk about culture, shall we? I don't know if this has been the case for you, but for me, there's some phrases I can't not hear in the Starcraft voices. Like, I was at home one Christmas, and we always have dinner with our neighbors, who are just like the sort of family number 2. We sort of merged together into a super family. And, you know, we were lighting candles just around the house to make it pretty. And my mom hands me one of those little lighter guns. I don't know what they're called, but you're like, yeah, you light the candles like you're firing a missile. But she hands it to me and says, could you light them up? And of course, I heard, in my mind, she immediately became a fire bat, like, light them up, right? I can't not hear that. Or when someone says reporting in a movie, I just, reporting in. Seriously, StarCraft 2 has invaded all things. And you know what? I don't mind it. It's wonderful. So let's talk about other things wonderful, like LiquidZenio. Just 12 hours ago, do I want to say? No, I guess 18 hours ago, LiquidZenio played against oGsSuperNova in the IEM World Championships in the round of 16, I believe it was. Zenio has always been known to be a solid Zerg vs. Terran player in practice, but it's always been that difficulty translating it over to tournaments. And they played a delightful best-of-3. LiquidZenio came out on top, hence why I'm wearing my Liquid Spirit shirt. Yes! And it was a really cool example of how to deal with the style we talked about 2 days ago. Just 2 days ago, we got the chance to examine MarineKingPrime style, which was 2 racks into many racks aggression, trying to follow up the battering down of the Zerg's economy with more exploitation of the lack of layer tech. If he was low on drones after the first attack, then he won't be able to get his layer quickly. If his layer is late, he won't be able to get baneling speed, roach speed, a big creep spread, and definitely not a really well-secured third base. So we're going to look at Zenio and how he deals with that 2-racks aggression, and then how he follows it up in the mid-game. And then in the remainder of the game, we're going to be analyzing the decisions that Zenio makes based upon some weird compositional choices, which are really cool. We're going to see how he positions his army relative to his enemy's army, and in particular, the one thing that excites me so much about this game is that Zenio is going to be losing a lot of expansions. And we actually get the chance to see how he just bounces back from that like it's no problem. I would say it's very common to hit a point in all levels of play where when you lose an expansion for your build, you feel dead. You feel like, well, the game is now over and I should just leave. It's a good thing no pros leave after having minimal losses, eh? Ding! But, I'm so mean. This is just LA tap water for any of you wondering. But, what were we talking about? Oh yeah, but we're going to see how LiquidZenio deals with those in a way that doesn't just seem like got a lucky comeback. It seems like a clear part of his plan. It's really cool. And then, of course, he's going to follow it up with a boss solution in the late game. So, in fact, this is the first daily in quite some time where we're actually just looking at a game. It's just a game. One game. Just un game. And I wanted to note one brief technical thing, because I see in the chat, if any of you are having sound synchronization problems, just refresh. Just refresh. The audio and the video are coming out 2 different streams, so sometimes something goes wonky through the internets and things get... So just refresh and all shall be fixed. Let's go ahead and hop into this match. Great. So right at the outset, what we're going to be looking at a lot in part number 1, with the sound on. Damn it. Rats. Messed it up again. We're going to be examining the way that Zenio deals with the huge variety of openings. Have you ever had this issue where there's so many possibilities that our Terran buddy can do that we feel horrendous? We don't know whether to get a gas geyser early, we don't know whether to build more drones, we don't know whether to save the larva and get more units. So we end up in this sort of lost area where we seem to get in situations that are called coin flippy. Now, when I say coin flippy, I don't actually mean that it is a real thing. The whole notion of, oh yeah, percentage builds and coin flippy and all that sort of stuff is the sign that something's going wrong in the build order. If players like Stefano can achieve 95-90% win rates by playing on the EU ladder in the Grandmaster regions, it probably feels like we can get rid of some coin flippiness. Coin flippiness always happens when there's something going a little bit wrong in terms of our thought pattern. Now, believe me when I say that it's not that it's easy. It's not that it's easy. Starcraft 2 obviously has a lot of difficulty and a lot of problems to solve. That's what makes it so fun for our brains to walk through all those problems and all that good, happy jazz. But in particular, we always want to make sure... what was I going to say? We always want to make sure of something. Where did my brain go? I had a point. It was going to be so great. You're going to hear the point. You're going to shiver. You are just going to start quivering like a little lady in the front line of a Justin Bieber concert. I can't wait. And afterwards, I'm going to go to Twilight. What was I going to say? It was going to be actually that good. We're talking about the number of possibilities. Yeah, that's right. Oftentimes, what works with one race doesn't work with another race. Sometimes with, a Terran opening, Terran can actually just do the opening and it accounts for all the possibilities. What we're going to see from Zenio is that he's going to step a little bit far forward, and if there's a 2-rax, he's going to go down this whole path. And if there's not a 2-rax, he's going to go down this whole path. It's a little more difficult in terms of keeping his brain together because he has to figure out 2 full paths as opposed to 1 straight path. But I don't want you to think that it is somehow more, that you couldn't do it. There's just a little bit more time in making sure we're being careful and that we're not clinging to some build order that tries to be a fix-all, that we just think. Excellent. So first and foremost, we have this nice little scout coming out, just checking the middle of the map. I don't know if in this specific version of Entombed Valley, it can actually only be 2 positions. I want to say that's not the case. I feel like this is the 4-player version of Entombed. But this is quite common with an early drone scout on 12. LiquidZenio is going to stop by the center, just make sure that there's no proxy barracks action happening here. And you'll also note that these Overlord movement patterns are designed to try to skirt past any sort of hidden barracks that's over here. We have our second Overlord also trying to just do this. I mean, just double-checking a whole lot of possibilities. And also, fairly importantly, this Overlord wants to have some safe place to go. And he actually will end up having enough time. About 3 minutes and 10 seconds is generally the time, generally around the time, around 3 minutes, that you have to start worrying about a Marine popping out and starting to be able to shoot. So, of course, we have a full minute to get our slow-ass Overlords to safety. In the meantime, we do see Zenio already moving forward and building this hatchery. As you'll note, I'm doing a lot more in-depth stuff in this early game. That's because we're actually just analyzing a game. Wonderful! We see the hatchery being planted down. We see these barracks actually being planted very early. This is an 11-11 racks in this game. And Zenio does get this fortunate pick on that one set of SCVs right there. Now, I want to note a series of conditions that to list off. It's very easy to get caught up in the moment and to see these two racks and to flip out. The only way to battle against this is a lot of practice and a lot of just understandings of basic timings. Zenio actually just went 15 hatch, 14 pool, and he's not pulling any drones at all. Very important to note that he's not pulling a whole bunch of drones. If you want to go for like a 15 hatch, 15 pool, something like that, where you build a few extra drones, maybe 15 hatch, 16 or 17 pool, like what Stefano does, that's fine. The important thing is that this drone is going to move, find the Terran base, and then start poking around. Even though Zerg got lucky by finding these Raxes are also kind of very close to the Zerg. So the luck, the benefit you gained by being lucky is offset by the benefit Terran has for it being close. This whole dialogue, I'm telling you, is that Zenio doesn't really need to deviate very much at all. He immediately goes up and builds the drones, and immediately ends up very, very nearly killing off a second SCV. But either way, we have two barracks done right now. Now, already, I want to note a couple of things that are very easy to not note, unless we are in a situation like the one we're in right now, where we actually have freedom to be relaxed and to think things through. In the game, a lot of times you're stricken with panic and all that negative jazz. But in a situation like this, there is virtually no risk of Hellions coming up. For a long time. There's virtually no risk of any air coming up for a very long time. There's so many timings at this point that we just immediately cross off. This is the sort of divergence that we end up talking about, where, you know, things like Zergling speed are only so important at this point in time, because there's not that many attacks that are going to be coming really quickly. Often Zergling speed is snatched up early because we're not sure when his first push is going to happen, because we know Hellions could be happening soon. We'll talk about that in a moment, but right now, I mean, Terran is super committed to this particular attack. Generally speaking, you don't want too many more than 6, 7, 8 drones coming out. Zenio can get away pulling a few extra here because he's going to go right back to mine. But we see that he had the patience to wait for this queen here. He has these lings coming out, and despite the 11-11 racks, this moment right here is going to be fairly typical for an 11-11 racks. We're actually seeing incredible, incredible patience out of Zenio. And that's one of the most important things. The drones are actually here only to make sure that a bunker doesn't really get planted down too early. You want to have as many hits going down on the buildings as humanly possible. And Zenio appropriately identifies that, wow, indeed, I am able to start droning up. This move around happens in sync with the almost done spine crawler. We saw Dongregu do that 2 days ago on 2 days ago's daily, but an important thing to note is that play. We didn't talk about it too much. So now we're in somewhat of a weird spot. We've managed to work our way around. Zenio, I think this is fairly common to do this little poke around Aru. But as we talked about, one of the big things with this style of play that Supernova is doing is that it's not the 2 racks trying to kill the Zerg that's the big deal. It's the fact that in this unit counting station, we see that Zenio is not really that ahead in drones. He has 1 queen. He's trying to get a 2nd queen up. He's going for the 3rd queen as well, because this is in tune with his style. And now he's droning up like crazy. Now, if you watch the daily from 2 days ago, we talked about how the method that we saw MarineKingPrime used to try to exploit the Zerg was going for a 4 racks push. In particular, he got 2 tech labs up very quickly for a bunch of upgrades and made the push. Now, I want to note right now that Supernova got really fast reactors. Everything I'm about to say right now is to emphasize the big window Zerg has right now. 2 refineries going down. Refineries mine about 100 gas a minute. So that means we can start a factory at 6:30. And as you'll note, just by going to the building menu, a factory takes a full minute. 7:30 is when the factory is done. And it takes about another half minute to build those Hellions. So literally at like 8 minutes is as early as any sort of tech threat could come to hit us. Plenty of time to continue to drone up. But of course, there's always this threat of the follow-up mid-game push that we're seeing Supernova do with these basic ground units. These Marines are going to try to get a little bit more map control, and Zenio is actually going to happily allow this to occur. He's building a second spine crawler, and he's just droning all the way up. Now, there were a number of options that we looked at yesterday, where we can, we can get the metabolic boost, we can go straight for the the layer tech. We can now follow this up with banelings and or roaches. We saw Dongragu try to do the roach play. And it's at this point in time when I actually get to tell you something I almost never get to tell you. It's time for some Zerg aggression. So often as a Terran player, you can drop, you can do some Hellion harass, you can do this. But most of the time for Zerg, it kind of feels like I am now going to sit back and defend, and it's going to be terrible. I hope I get enough drones and all that. Oh, man. Clearly a huge struggle bear moment. But in this particular circumstance, against a 2-Rax player, Zenio is going to do a very clever baneling bust move. Where is it? Aha, here it is. He has the 2 geysers that he snatched up. Right when he starts building that baneling nest, we're seeing a big flood of Zerglings. We're seeing him kill this off. I want you to envision this as preparing for the 3rd base. This whole play is actually the Kyrix style that was popularized way long ago when MarineKingPrime was making his run to the grand finals of the GSL. The Kyrix style of going 2-base Ling Baneling to secure a 3rd. And there's our drone heading there. If this were Tal'Darim Altar, those would be the 3rd rocks. If this were Shattered Temple, this would be the rocks to take down the back door. We see this evolution chamber is popping up right now as well. And even though it's almost impossible for a Terran player to go Banshees, even though almost no Terran player would go Banshees, I still want you to note that this timing of the Evolution Chamber accounts for that. We can still end up getting some sort of Banshee tech up. This is actually just straight up used for the for DOS upgrades. But either way, what could our opponent possibly be doing right now? He could be going for 2 factories and starting to get some Blue Flame Hellions out. He wouldn't nearly have Blue Flame right now. And Zenio's actually going to bring the pressure straight to the front door of Supernova. To note, Supernova, because he got these geysers so early, actually did get a really fast combat shield. And even with the fastest possible stim he got, he still doesn't have it in time. In other words, if a player goes for this 2-Rax timing, one of the quickest attacks they can follow it up with is Marine Hellion or Marauder Marine with upgrades. In both circumstances, he cannot really have any sort of stim. If he is going straight for tank, he really cannot have any siege mode. If he went crazy nuts fast with his gas, he might have 1. Maybe. He might barely have 1. But other than that, he's pretty much good. Pretty much going to be good at this circumstance. Well, actually, he will have 1. He'll have exactly 1. He should, if he's going for tanks. But if he does go for tanks that quickly, his Marines can also have fairly little upgrades for them. So basically, at this point in time, this is virtually guaranteed to do a pretty solid amount of damage. Before we go into the analysis of the attack, I want to note we're pretty even in terms of the worker count. We saw this in the MarineKingPrime daily 2 days prior, where Terran is able to pretty much stay even with the Zerg. It's hard for the Zerg to get ahead. So what does Zenio do? He embraces this role, And just as Terran was buying time by going for this 2 racks and trying to force the other opponent to be low on upgrades and stuff, or should be low on drones and stuff, Zenio is now going to buy time with this attack in order to get an upgrade here and the time that he needs to get this expansion here. And I want to tell you more, but we're unfortunately going to have to take a break. And when we come back from part 2, we're going to see a whole bunch of explosions on Zenio's front, or on Supernova's front because of all the banelings. And then we're going to see how smoothly Zenio steps into the mid-game and how fantastissimo his playstyle is. See you then, see you then, see you then for explosions.